Okay, so in the last video, I kind of abstractly talked about where philosophy was in the Enlightenment era, so the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s. Um, Kant is responding to uh, the growth of philosophy, wanting to integrate the purity of rational thought, that you can have precision with mathematics and abstract concepts, but how do you do that with an empirical world that is fuzzy, quote unquote? And so I'll start off by saying a little bit about Descartes. So Descartes was a French philosopher. He's also a mathematician, and he did some work um, in developing our graphical representations. So a Cartesian plane, the XY coordinate plane, is Descartes' invention. Rumor has it that he was sick on his bed and he looked at the ceiling tiles and he saw a spider crawling along the panels, and he had the idea of a plane demarcated by integers, and that you could map a function with a graph like this. And so that's where you get Cartesian plane. And so Descartes was committed to the perfection that you can get with mathematics, with rational ideas, with concepts. But he wanted to do that in a way that he could guarantee that he had true knowledge about the world through science. And the way that he did that was a rather sloppy way. But he started off with this skeptical paradigm. How can I be sure that I'm not being deceived by an evil demon, that, I'm not in a dream and I'm not having an illusion? How can I be sure that what I'm seeing is true and that I can say something that is true about what I'm seeing? Well, he introduces this idea that God is created our minds to understand the world truthfully, and so because of that, I can guarantee that I know about the world. His argument's shaky, but the point is more so to demonstrate, how do you respond to skepticism? How do you respond to the need to know things as they are? You have to go through all these hoops to prove something with absolute certainty. If you look at a lot of blog posts about Descartes, you get some people that are really committed to him, and you get a lot of people that think that he was just paranoid and just too scared to want to engage with the sensible world. He treated the sensible world as uncertain, shaky, at fault in ways for not having like a divine rational perfection, and he wanted to sort of use the reasoning mind as an escape from the imperfections of a fuzzy empirical world. You get some other philosophers along the way who are responding to Descartes. I'll say a little bit about David Hume. David Hume comes in, and rather than relying on an argument about God making our minds perfect, David Hume says that he points out that if you really look at something and you look at how when you do one thing, do another thing, you never really observe the causation involved there. So like if you drop a ball, you see the ball start from here and then you see it fall down. Do you ever see the cause of the ball falling? Do you ever see that happening? All you see is the ball moving. What's to guarantee that it's not just a correlation and that there really is some inherent law to the way the ball acts? Well, it's very hard to say there is any coherent law to the universe because it's all inferred. I never see the law that makes the ball fall. I never see the law of gravity. I see a ball falling and I can mathematically represent that as gravity, but I can't show you that law. That is something that we infer. And so he also says, how can you infer that God is real from a sensible world where you don't see God? Well, you can't. All you can really make claims about is what you observed directly. So this is a strong argument, stronger than Descartes', because Descartes wanted to lean on the perfection of rational ideas to understand science. Hume, on the other hand, wanted to take a softer view and to basically require that people make softer claims about what they observe. So rather than saying, if you got in a fight in elementary school, rather than saying, he hit me, he's a bad guy, he threw his ball at me, and he was angry at me, Hume would encourage to say, the ball left his hand, hit me, he had an appearance of anger, and I was upset. And so there's this just loose association of different things, but that the responsibility wasn't really this other guy's fault, per se. I observed that he was angry, that he threw the ball, that it hit me, that I was upset. But these are all just related. They're not guaranteed to be absolute reality. I can only infer from them what I see. I can't say that he hates me and he wanted to hurt me and make me sad and that he's a bad guy. I only see that he is angry, that he threw a ball, that it hit me, and now I'm sad. And so that's kind of, in a simpler way, rejection of Hume. John Locke, the famous political philosopher, also wrote about science and knowledge. He also took an empirical view, the idea of a tabula rasa, that the mind is a blank slate, that when you're born you don't know anything, and so you learn from what other people have taught you to believe, and you develop claims through that. I don't know much about Locke, but I know that he's another guy that was very much involved in the 1600s of philosophy. I think 1700s also. And so in general, there's this kind of move at that time from a Christianized philosophy to a more like objective, well-rounded philosophy, which really was not so much an objective effort. It was more like in the sense that Christianity is just wrong. I mean, a lot of people think that way, and they thought that way oftentimes, or at least they would have to give the appearance of supporting the church when really they didn't feel like they belonged there. Really, it's less an attempt of being purely objective as it is, I guess people will say that people of faith aren't objective, that they take leaps of faith and they infer things, but so do philosophers. Philosophers and all sorts of people in all sorts of circumstances make beliefs. And so it's not so much a moving into becoming purely objective, because we're still humans, we're still going to interpret things a certain way. It's not so much objectivity, it's more about humanism. It's more about, I want to make my beliefs my own, and I want to understand the world from what I can experience rather than what somebody else tells me to. I don't want to basically take things that I imagine to be true and impose them on other people, because that actually leads to errors when you bump up against something that is outside your scope. Like, let's say somebody threw a ball at you and it hit you, and you thought it was out of anger, but really they were angry about something that somebody just told them, and they were looking at you and they thought that there was nobody there and they just wanted to throw a ball and they hit you by accident. That's a limitation to what you would observe. And so there's this need to move past imposing concepts without some degree of reflection, without some degree of criteria that isn't dogmatic in nature. And the dogmatic nature was oftentimes coming from the church being very imposing about their beliefs. It was less from a place of trust and of openness and of a desire to understand, at least in the church, and there were people that were feeling very imposed. So I'll continue to talk about Kant on the next video.